Hi, thank you for joining me for another episode of Intuition, Your First Sense. This week, I have the pleasure of meeting with Karen McCall. Now, she's a trailblazer in the field of money coaching, truly, people. 33 years ago, Karen found herself in a deep financial trouble that, let's face it, most of us have experienced, and didn't really see the professional help that she needed anywhere around her. So she was determined to figure out a sustainable way to stay out of debt for good. And she decided to create a signature method rooted in the understanding of her relationship with her money. And isn't this often how it goes? We create what we need most. So join me in having a great conversation. We're listening to a great conversation that I had with Karen today, and check out her Money Grit program. So Karen, thank you so much for joining myself and the listeners on Intuition, Your First Sense. And I'm grateful. I'm always grateful when people are willing to come on and talk about what they're doing in the world and how they're helping others. And of course, if the word intuition is in there, I love it too. So, and the soul, I saw that on a listing. So thank you. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It's so nice to be here, Vicki. And I loved when I was invited, seeing that you're talking about intuition and money. It's like, I love that connection.
It's so important. I mean, I've been doing this coaching intuition thing for 21 years. And this is one of the primary subjects that comes up because, I mean, obviously I charge for my services. And one of the conversations that I will have with people is, can you afford me? Because if this is going to go on a card, I'm not going to work with you until, we can meet once, clear things up and all that, because I've been there, where debt was ruling my life and I was reaching out to everything. So can you help people understand, because I just gave a little bit of an intro in the intro. Tell us who you are, what you've been doing, how you helping?
Okay. Well, this is a really exciting time for me. I turned 77 last year. I'll be 78 this year. And I have been really kind of looking at, I started my business financial recovery in 1988 and really looking at where I'm going for this last stage, of my work life. So it started out, back in the mid 80s, I was working for the second largest computer company in the world. I had a beautiful office, big round glass building in San Francisco's financial district. And if you'd have seen me, you would have just thought, wow, what a success, right? Mm-hmm. But behind that beautiful facade of my Italian suits and my briefcase and sports car, what I had was a dirty little secret. Mm-hmm. And that is that I was a wreck with money. I was alone for the first time in my life. I was divorced. My kids were off in college. And I had never learned how to handle money. And I didn't pay taxes when I got my divorce settlement. So I had tax things coming in and, credit card bills coming in. I just went through the money and then just went through the credit. Mm-hmm. And I just put everything in a big bowl on top of my refrigerator and just like out of sight, out of mind. And then one day I came home and there was an eviction notice on my door. And so I thought, I better do something about this. So I did. I pulled that big bowl down. And it was interesting. I was dating a guy at the time and he knew something was wrong, but he never asked about it. Mm. But he always paid for everything. I didn't volunteer to pay a dime for anything. And he would bring me these self-help tapes, back at, I don't know how old you're.
When they came in the big folder.
I had stacks of them on the floor. And so the night that I decided to pull that bowl down and do something about it, I looked at that stack of tapes and I pulled out the one by Dr. Robert Schuller, Possibility Thinking. Mm-hmm. And as I listened to his words, I just found the strength to open every envelope, throw out all the duplicates, make the list. But I knew that I was in trouble and I didn't know where to go for help. At that time, we didn't have Google. We had the Yellow Pages. Mm-hmm. So in the Yellow Pages, I found debt counseling, and then I found accountants and financial planners. So I knew financial planners and accountants were probably not going to be the answer. So I tried debt counseling, and it didn't work. It just didn't work because they wanted to take my money, pay my bills, and give me a little bit of an allowance. And when you think about intuition, I was thinking about this morning, getting ready for a meeting with you, Vicki, and I feel like I've had a guardian angel intuition following me this entire 30 some odd years that I've been in business. Mm-hmm. And my intuition told me that I was a serious case and I really needed to address it on all levels. So I went to therapy. I went to a 12-step program, and I just loved delving into it. I would buy all kinds of little budget books and make little graphs and things. And at the time, I also knew that I was really unhappy with being in corporate America. So I signed up for a career exploration class. And as I took this class, I realized that what I wanted to do was help people who had problems with money. I figured that there were a lot of people like me. And so that's how it started. And at the time this was now later, after 2 or 3 years is when I realized I really wanted to help people, after about 2 or 3 years on my own journey. And at that time I was dating John, who is now my husband. And I shared with him one morning at breakfast in San Francisco. I can picture us in that little restaurant, 33 years ago. And I said, I want to start this business. I want to help people who have problems with money. He said, oh, financial recovery. I like that. So he named my business.
Thank you, John.
And, and now we actually have another business together, which I'll tell you about later. But he's a retired attorney, and we both work together now, and it's delightful.
That's wonderful. I love hearing this because so many people, I feel like we, especially in this culture, we don't really have the mentor or the conversations about money. I mean, I know I watched my parents struggle, but nobody ever discussed anything. And, I believe you when I believe everybody has intuition, but I believe you when you say, like, there was this little guardian, your intuition kind of protecting you and guiding you in a way, because that's when we start listening to that first sense, that voice, it does often line us up with the people or the service, or just that connection, because there is such a thing as divine intervention when we have gone so far astray that we can't, but we have to listen, you have to be able to, and by reaching up and taking that bowl down, I feel like you were saying to then your own spirit, your own soul, and whatever helpers that were around, let's do this thing. I'm showing up. I'm here. I might have been avoiding before, but here I am. And let's take the natural intelligence I have and pull it together. And then your heart gets involved with, there's gotta be others, that are hurting. And I mean, I think we do end up, if we're listening to our soul, we do end up providing a purpose or a helpfulness, because we can empathize. We can know where it's coming from. It's part of the reason I love trauma work. I don't love the fact that people have trauma, but I love helping people. And I got a good kick out of when you said just digging in, because, that's my favorite part. I'm like, let's just go in. Come on. It won't be that bad. So right. Can you tell, so people know, what is the current product? Like, how are you helping people today? And then we'll weave it in and we'll talk about how it got here and all that. Yeah. Cause I want people to be on the inside as we're talking.
Yeah. And I'll just say 2 little things and then I will. Okay. When I started, I worked one-on-one with people, with individuals, couples. And then before long, I had people saying, I love what you do. It's making such a difference in my life. They knew I was doing a good living doing it. They wanted me to train them. So then now for probably the last 20 years, I've been training money coaches worldwide. Mm. And now it's so much easier than before. And what I realized early on was that I needed, for me to heal, I knew that I needed to deal with money on a practical level, really get smart with money, learn to touch my money, get involved with my money. I knew emotionally that there was a lot going on, early trauma, early abuse, neglect, and spiritual. I just knew that I had to work on all 3 of those levels. So for the practical level, I created a program called Money Minder, and it was a paper and pencil system.
I love that.
And then, of course, after a while, my clients would come in and they'd say, hey, I put this on Excel. This is too much work adding this across. And so then we had a Money Minder moved from pencil and paper to Excel. And then in 2013, I launched my first software program. And however, technology really changes, right? And so the technology was old. And so a decision that my husband and I made together this last year, as a matter of fact, talk about dreams. My husband retired a little early. He's younger than I am. I was going to work until he was 70, but I've always wanted to travel. So I said, I want to go to Europe and live for 2 or 3 years. And I want to find a software developer. I want to see if I really do want to go to this next generation of software. And so we went. We had to come back early because of COVID, unfortunately. But we've been working with the developer in Barcelona, and we've now launched Money Grit.
Yeah, I love that title. I just not to interrupt, but as an aside, because one of the premises I've had in my own life, integrity is a big word for me. Like to be in integrity, and you can't have integrity without grit, because it's right there in the word. And to hold your own integrity when other things, even if it's a purchase or, you want that hit from buying something, you got to have grit. you got to have some belief in self and some idea of sustainability and all of that. So when I saw the name Money Grit, I'm like, oh, this resonates on so many levels as well. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, perseverance, resilience. I first heard the word. I was in therapy, and this therapist said to me, I knew you had grit. And I knew it was a compliment, and I kind of knew what the word meant. And that was many, many years ago. And then, of course, Angela Duckworth published her beautiful book a couple of years ago called Grit.
Yep.
I have it over there.
Yeah, I have it too.
And when I read it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is really what I've gone through, what my clients have gone through. It's like, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of, showing up and falling off the wagon and coming right back. It really does take grit. So we were in Portugal, when I woke up one morning, and a few years ago, I was in a mediation because the Trademark Commission granted 2 trademarks for money minders. So we tried for months to come up with another name, couldn't do it. So we added online, Money Minder Online. But I woke up this morning and I just knew Money Grit. I just knew that was the name. And that was just about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. Wow. And then I found a designer in London. I joined this women's group, and it's just been a wonderful journey. And when you talk about intuition, today when I thought of this, I thought, and maybe this happens to you, but anytime I'm going to write an article or I'm going to give a talk, I'll go to my library, and it just seems like I just look and I pull up the right book with the right quote, and it's just amazing. And I've always just said I have this guardian angel who just has led me.
Yeah, it may be true. We all have a guardian or solar angel. However, I always love to pause people and say, okay, a little credit where credit's due. This is you lining up with you that allows for your vision, literally your physical eyes, to even lock on that book, because it seems like it gets brighter on the bookshelf, right? You've looked at it over and over. When I suggest people seek something out when they're seeking something, or if they want to get a deck of oracle cards or something, I'm like, well, I can tell you, but it's much more effective if you just go stand in front of them and see which one jumps out at you, which is also a lot of fun too, because sometimes it'll be dolphins and the person will be like, dolphins? I'm like, well, go for it. So that is you. To me, that's you lining up with your soul that said, I'd like to come in and help people in this way. And you're listening. So it's that merging, which is so exciting for me, the merging of that non-physical intelligence with your willingness, your grit to put in the work, because it takes a lot to be a solopreneur and especially to develop software entrepreneur, to develop software and to step out there and say, I really want to help people with this. So that's what I love about the creating. I saw a line that you said, creating a business that feeds your soul and your wallet. And I'm like, yes, because I work with a lot of companies and I'll say, okay, the money's great and we'll do that. We'll get there. I need to hear where you're going, what you feel. Like what's in the soul, including those places of doubt or the belief systems that are getting in the way. And how do we clear those? Because, money's a root chakra issue most of the time, but it comes up into the heart. And if those aren't dealt with, you can forget the power center. That's just going to check out. So that was one of the reasons I was like, we have to have her on, because I love the empowerment that I call it a prosperity plan, not a budget, because I found people got locked up with the word budget. And I started calling it a prosperity plan and working with a calendar. And literally people would come to my office and the bowl you're talking about, I would say, put it in a garbage bag, bring it in, and we would sit on the floor and do exactly what you said. And I'd hug them halfway through. I'm like, we're going to do this. It's okay. Because I've been there, so your intuition, you woke up with that money grit. So to me, that's a precognitive message, right? So or a download. I call them downloads. You get the download while we sleep, and then you have to be willing to listen to it when you wake up. So you did.
I did. And you know what? The process that I created, Vicki, was when I started, I thought, okay, I'm going to be working with people just like me, in debt, probably make decent money, never learn to handle money. And so I created a process where the first book I wrote was to write their money autobiography, so they could see how they developed their belief systems and attitudes about money, how that drives a lot of their behaviors. And then I created this, I call them a spending plan and an earning plan. I love yours. I never use the B word, never use the B word. It feels restrictive.
It is.
And one of the things that I believe impacts a lot of people is when they're not tuned in to what their needs are. And if you work with trauma, you know that people who just kind of shut down, they don't have any needs, right? It's going to drive a lot of their behaviors. They're either going to be constantly craving and longing for things, and they think that, this tube of lipstick will do it, or this, new iPhone, or, but what I think really contributes to somebody getting to that place where they're living in deprivation is where they're doing without something that's really important to them. It could be material, physical, spiritual, but they've neglected. It's just like they're dissatisfied and unhappy. They're doing without things that are important, or they make do. They just sort of cobble things together, like the duct tape approach. But there's still a lot of stuff that's kind of undone in their life. They're dissatisfied. And then the overdoers, just over volunteering, over committed, overworking, overspending. And all three of those states, doing without, making do, and overdoing, leads to the person living in that depleted state, that state of deprivation. And so everything in my work is, I say that my money program, the Money Grit, it's needs-based and category-driven. And what I mean by that is, as we go through and create categories where a person spends money, money touches almost every area of our life.
Sure.
I want them at the same time, when they get to every category, to kind of do an assessment of, are they doing without, making do, or overdoing? How do they feel about their home? How do they feel about their wardrobe? How do they feel about their spiritual growth? How do they feel about, And so as they're doing that, they create a needs and wants list. And one of the reasons that I went into the software business, if there was a software program out there that I could have used as a counseling tool to accomplish what I felt needed to be accomplished, I would have never gone into the software business. It's expensive. It's a lot of work. But I knew that I needed some features to really help people get strong with money.
Okay.
And so that's why I went into the software business, just because I needed these certain things. And I'll give you an example. If people do a plan, usually things will change throughout the month.
Right.
And if they can just go in and change that plan number, they're not going to learn why it changed. Did it change because they just didn't plan enough? Did it change because something came up they could not have anticipated? Did it change because They just saw it, wanted it, and, the heck with my spending plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I built in is I say, leave your initial figures and we're going to do an adjustment. But as they do that adjustment, then they ask themselves those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Why did this change?
Mm-hmm.
And not to judge themselves at this point. It's getting to know,
mm-hmm.
oh yeah, when I get emotional or fearful, I do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another thing that we look for is when people put in things to take care of themselves and then they don't do it.
Right.
So there's really that reason that's the fourth. And what I found is that people can have two different reactions. One person may feel, I have no needs, thank you very much, everything is a want. It's too painful to think they have needs because they don't believe they can be met. Mm-hmm. Or the other person who can't tolerate any kind of delayed gratification. So everything is a need. Yeah. I have to have it. Mm-hmm. So in that exercise, what I tell people is, if you can't decide whether it's a need or not, put it on both. It will get clear over time. Mm-hmm. But my belief is if people don't meet their needs first, mm-hmm. they're not going to be able to heal their relationship with money. Mm-hmm. Because as they begin to take care of these areas of deprivation, something starts happening at a very deep level. Like, oh, it feels good to have those windshield wipers on my car. Oh, it feels good to have a bra that fits, nice in the wear. It feels good to have gone to the dentist. It feels good to have gotten new tires for my car. Just those little mm-hmm. things. I took a Saturday and took my dog and went and took a walk on the beach. And now they can start increasing their capacity to have things come into their life. And I think everyone is looking for some kind of purpose. That's why I say it has to be practical, emotional, and spiritual. Mm-hmm. And so those things start pushing a person deeper. And so that's what I've loved about the work. And one other reason that I started the company is I think that it's important for people to separate their personal and their business.
Thank you.
And so I have two versions. I have the personal version and I have the business version. And when I wrote my last book, Vicki, my research was just pulling out some of the banker boxes from the basement and going through old client files. And I wanted to answer the question, well, what brings people in for counseling? And I knew it was some version of, getting out of debt for sure. But almost everyone said some version of, I want to have improve my relationship with money. I want to learn to save. But the other thing I saw were the clients I'd worked with, where we worked on the solopreneurs, where we worked on their personal finances and their business. We have them both. Their businesses really took off. Mm-hmm. Because talk about intuition, probably mm-hmm. my second or third month of working with people, I thought, I have to create a program for their businesses. Because all the little business people I worked with, they always had a back door.
Yeah.
The business finances, they'd come in, it's like, no, we didn't do any of this. Oh, but they did it over here.
Yeah.
So we had to really have our arms around everything. Yeah. And so that was really, and it wasn't that I didn't know it, okay, yeah, this client's doing well this day. But then when you start just seeing it, when you sit down and really look at it, it was really validating in terms of how powerful the process was for business owners.
It's so important to hear that whole person, well, even whole entity, whole relationship approach, whether it's their relationship with their money, their relationship with their business. It all is about the relationship with yourself. So sometimes we go through the business to get to self, right? They could come to you because it sounds to me, you can correct me if I'm off base, but because they have this fundamental thing looking them right in the face. And perhaps their own intuition was saying, I'd really like to get to know you, person who I'm walking around with every day. And, they want to know self. And I think purpose, that's always been kind of a sticky word for me because the self-help world likes to put it out as, what is your life purpose? And there's like this big thing about it. And I'm like, I really believe that people's purpose is they want to feel value. They want to feel value within themselves. And I would imagine that if one is not feeling value within themselves, you're working a lot and that's likely where the extra expenditures come from, or just not sitting down and having a conversation with your money. with the appreciation that's around you. So I love the idea of the relationship, because I'm sure you see it, hear it, that premise of, let me get you to your 6-figure business. Not one of those programs, because I've signed up for a few, as I'm I'm kind of nosy. I like to be in there learning about all this. I think it's important to learn, but sometimes I want to learn what not to do. Yeah. And there were a couple programs that I sent messages to the privately, and said, nobody's talking about expenditures. We're all talking about bringing things in, but where's the expenditure sheet? Like where's all this? And they just glossed over it. So it's so heartening and refreshing to hear that there's this whole being again approach. What do you feel? You said that in your research, you found that a lot of people, it was about their relationship with money, which they probably couldn't articulate until you helped them with that. Do you think?
They'd say some version of it, but what many people would end up saying is, I finally feel like they're grown up with money. They feel, oh, I can handle it. I know what to do. When you're talking about business owners and their relationship to earning and their relationship, you have to look at the other side. One of the exercises that I have people do, business owners do, well, I've had other people do it as well, because it can help with their salary negotiations and stuff.
Oh, wonderful.
I have them do a work history autobiography where they list every job they have ever had. Mm-hmm. How did they get it? While they were there, how did they feel about the job? What were their duties? Did it match up with what they wanted to be doing? How were they paid? How did they feel about what they were paid? And then how did they leave? And yesterday, I'm doing my last certification for money coaches right now. And yesterday we had our kickoff meeting, and two of the coaches said, a few months ago, I just somehow didn't feel that I knew enough, or I had enough value to bring. And she said, but I went back and did that work history autobiography, and I thought, wow, I have a lot of value that I bring. And so I think, as we heal the deprivation, that feeling of more, I am worthy, but I also have value that I am bringing. And I think that is what purpose is for people. They want to feel acknowledged. I mean, mm-hmm. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we want to feel that, we're making a contribution. Mm-hmm. If it's just in our family, it doesn't have to be a big contribution to the universe, but do we feel that we're valuable, that is all so much a part of the work. You just can't deal with just the numbers and say, oh, let's make 7 figures. Yeah. I always think if I sat down and did an annual spending plan, that's another tool that I have in Money Grit. In addition to the monthly and that adjustment process, which I have that no other program has, we also have the annual plans. So we do the monthly plans, but then you go in and do the annual. And now you're tracking against the annual. And that helps people break denial at a bigger level. I call it the graduate school of spending and earning plans, because you say, okay, this is they know what they need to earn personally because they've done their personal. Mm-hmm. Now they know what they need to run their business. Then do they need to grow their business? Mm-hmm. And so we go through every category of their business, just like we do every category of a person's personal life. In your thing that you sent out today, you said, make sure you have a nice background. I've got good cameras. I've got lights, to take an inventory. What are your needs and wants in your business? Yeah. If you're just spending on your wants, but not really, doing podcasts and not having good lights, so that people, if they start doing that same thing in their business, what are my needs? How am I sabotaging my needs? Just going for the wants, and then I never really get grounded in my business. Mm-hmm. So it's a powerful process because, it is emotional, practical, and it is a spiritual journey for people, when they're doing this kind of work.
It is. I'm having an internal giggle going on here because I feel like often people will come to me and they think that we're only going to talk spiritual. And I will ask them about, and these are people who might not own businesses either. They're working through their own belief systems or challenges in family or whatever. And I will ask them about their systems. I will ask them how they feel about the work they're doing, and really get in touch with that. And a lot of the times, to that regard, the business owners that hire me to get a little bit more, to build their business, to expand it in some way, to bring some spirit to it, they're like, I didn't think I signed up for this. And, because we're talking about, well, that relationship you have with your mom, it's affecting your wallet, so let's go in there and let's talk about this. So there's, in a universal sort, that I'm having a little giggle because I feel like we're doing the same exact things with, and helping people in that whole place, and then connecting the soul with it. We have different avenues of coming in. And this is what I love about the helpers that are in the world, and the people who are courageous enough to ask for the help. Because talk about grit, it takes grit and courage to say, this is not where I want to be. I have some sense of where I want to be, and I can't quite speak it or speak of it. Maybe I'm not in touch with it. So I just love when people get help. I don't really even care where they get the help, as long as they're getting the help. And then if I can help spread it. So what do you mean when you say like a business that feeds your soul and your wallet?
Well, I'll speak to myself. One of the reason I came up with that is when I talk to people about training to become a money coach, one of the things I say is that to me, this has been the perfect business for me, because I get to make a difference in people's lives, facilitate a process for people to become grown-ups with money, learn to have more of the kind of life they want to have, feel empowered. That feels good to me here.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
I mean, the audience can't see me, but I'm
in the heart, in the power.
In my heart.
Yeah.
And I get to make a good living doing it. And so to me, that is the combination. And that's why one of the chapters I have in my book is called, Is Your Work Working? And I have people go through an exercise. Is their work working, but the money doesn't?
Yeah.
Does the money work, but the work doesn't?
Yeah.
Both work, or do both not work? So first is, and if people have money problems, they do not feel that they have the choice. Like me, I did not feel that I could leave corporate America until I got my arms around my money.
Sure.
And that was not fulfilling work for me. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I mean. Work that feels connected to what you want to be doing. You get up in the morning and you're not going, oh my God, I just dread going to work today. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so wonderful. My husband really didn't enjoy being a lawyer. And that's what's so much fun. He says, this work really helps people, oh. And that's a quality that a lot of people look for. And I don't believe that everybody is going to find that perfect profession, right? But if they have to work at a job that maybe they don't absolutely love, they still then need, what do they have control over, mm-hmm. that they can change and have it be more meaningful? Mm-hmm. And they'll know, because if they get in touch with their feelings. That's another thing I have in Money Grid, is when people spend, there's a little memo that they can write down how they felt when they spent it. Mm-hmm. Start getting in touch with the feelings and emotions. Yeah. And then by doing the historical work, looking at your history with work and earning, looking at your history with from the autobiography that I have people write, starts people from their earliest memories through their adolescent years, then young adulthood, and then present day. Sometimes they don't have a lot of memories when they're really young.
Right.
But it starts, and then they'll go, oh, those are feelings that it's messages that I got from my family that, may have been tacit, but they were so loud, it might as well have been on the refrigerator. And to start recognizing that, when I get triggered, I understand now. I have compassion for myself. That's the other thing I think we all have to have when we're on this journey.
Majorly.
I felt so guilty for so long that I knew I had to resolve this, that I had wasted so much of my life. I mean, I was in my 40s when I was bottoming out around money. And it just seemed like that I was too old. I mean, it was too late for me. Mm-hmm. And here I am, 77. Well, okay, so 40, it seemed like maybe I was over the hill, but here I am 30 some years later, and a lot has changed. So I don't think anyone is ever too old to say,
I agree.
You can make things better, because if you live another 2 or 3 years, or 5 or 10 or 20, boy, you can really, really change the experience, rather than just saying, no, I'm too old, just have to live with this for the rest of my life.
I have a statement. It's probably a little rough, but it works. And because I have people of all ages that come to me for services, and I had a gentleman who was early 80s, and he wanted to write a book. And he's like, but I'm too old. And I just said to him, are you still sucking oxygen? And he's like, I believe so. I said, well, then I can't believe that. Because if you're here and as a physical being, you are still taking in oxygen, there is something that you're here to learn. There is something that you have within you that can be offered. And it can be holding the door for someone. It does not have to be a big stage. It doesn't have to be, maybe the book, we actually came to the point where he wrote the book for his family. It wasn't about putting it out there and doing a book tour and all that, because I said, it seems like that's overwhelming. Is this a gift for your family? And he lit up, and then he had it done, so it's that compassion, that understanding, and I think a little bit of not listening to societal messages or anything like that, and understanding maybe it is a society message and I don't have to listen to that. So I personally don't believe we're supposed to have careers. I think we're here to expand, to grow, but in that an expansion and in that growing, something, you may do a complete, left turn. I was in healthcare finance, so spreadsheets, when you say spreadsheets, you're speaking to my heart. Like a good reconciliation still makes me very happy inside. And like you, I was in my mid 40s when in the early 40s, and then solidified it in the mid 40s when my husband passed, around the money thing, where I was like, boy, you really better get your stuff together. I mean, I was the primary money, so that was good. But the beliefs around it, the parental stuff that you're carrying, all of that lives within our neural pathways, and I'm sure you see that. And I love the ask yourself the feeling, what is the feeling? Because I call it micro movements matter. Like those little tiny movements, they add up, just like spending adds up. So do those micro movements. But if you catch yourself compassionately in the emotion that's going on, big change can happen. And maybe it's that big change in that moment that you walked out of the store, or that you stepped away from your computer and you did not hit purchase, or, whatever, or give that person the money because they're not doing their own work. So all of it still coming from that value place. I love this. And I know we talk about business owners, but I feel like this applies individually as well. Maybe even more so to more people individually, because they're not everybody's a business owner. So, and the idea of being, value of self and value of your money, I think is a gift you give yourself, like that freedom of, well, I could purchase that. I use that statement with myself a lot. I could purchase that. I choose not to. When the autopilot wants to kick in of I'll feel better. So.
And that can be another thing that can help people. We have so many decisions we have to make constantly. And when we're out shopping, we have a lot of decisions to make. Even just grocery shopping. And so one of the great thing about doing a spending plan at the beginning of the month is you sit there and you make a lot of your decisions. And then what I have in my process, there's a summary page that will answer the question. They do their plan. Will their plan work? And then if not, they go back and they work on adjustments, trying to keep the integrity of their spending plan and asking themselves if they can meet those needs in ways that cost less or no money. So armed with a good spending plan going into the month where, you are definitely taking care of some of your needs, but you're also taking care of business. It's so freeing for people. I still do it to this day. I do a spending plan every month, and I do one for the year. I work and I watch them because it's just such a great barometer for how things are going, and a lot of people. Another thing that I have is a program called Saving Your Way Out of Debt, and so often, people have the idea that if you have debt, your life just has to go on hold. No goodies, no dinners out, no new clothes, no vacations, just everything goes to getting out of debt. And that doesn't work for most people.
Right.
It's too restrictive. And so I have people deal with their relationship to debt and their relationship to savings. So they may pay minimum on their credit cards right at the beginning, but they've got to start building up some savings that they're going to spend, savings for periodic expenses that will come up throughout the month and throughout the year. Those non-monthly expenses are what quite often ends up on the credit cards.
Oh, right. Like the car repair, or last night I had my cat at the vet, things like
yeah. So, I just feel that all of those areas that we hear people say, if you have any extra money, throw it all on debt. And the reason for that is because people are paying so darn much money on credit cards.
Sure.
Right? But I'm looking for the long game. It's if people have been in debt for months or years, sometimes decades, they're carrying credit card debt and paying high interest. So if we say, okay, at this stage, maybe you're going to pay minimum while you start saving for these periodic expenses. And that starts shifting a person from not being a saver to being a saver. They often don't want to touch it then for those periodic expenses. And then there's a couple of other levels as well. But, really exploring everything, not just how we spend, but how we save. There's so much out there about debt, but not savings. The second level of savings that I have is safety net savings. And this is really important for entrepreneurs. I do not use the word emergency savings.
Thank you.
There are emergencies, right?
COVID.
But COVID is, yeah. There was no way we could have known when we were in Europe that we would have had to fly back and pay a fortune because we had to do it in 2 days. But even that, if you're traveling, you might have to fly home. So, but there are earthquakes and there are fires and floods and different things. But most things people can plan for if they're conscious and go, in addition to my monthly bills, I have these periodic expenses that come up. But then for entrepreneurs, we want to take paid vacations. We want to be able to take sick leave. So the second level of savings that I have people start looking at is their safety net savings, which is to cover income shortages or losses.
Yeah.
And for entrepreneurs, it's that. But even if somebody is working for someone else, when does their disability kick in? What do they need for safety net? And so that's a triangle, the periodic savings and then the safety net savings, and then their investment savings is up here, and these protect it. So often people have to either cash in their 401ks or their IRAs. They borrow from their 401ks, they cash in their IRAs. They have tax consequences. And then there's also 3 levels of getting out of debt. The first level is stabilizing. If you're on a hole, stop digging. And then but during that stage, while they're stabilizing, they may be paying minimum and starting to work on their savings. And then the next level is, okay, now that you're stabilized and you have a spending plan, you really can see what you can do to start really chipping away at that debt. I call that debt repayment. And that is what's important during that phase. It could take a year, it could take 5 years, depending on how far in debt someone is. But at that stage, they get to still live their life, even though they're not yet debt-free. And that is a really important message for people. And then the third stage is being debt-free. And what I learned in working with people and myself, it wasn't enough to just say, okay, there's 3 levels and you're debt free, because people were really at risk when they got out of debt to go back into debt.
Right.
And so, I would finish with my clients and they accomplished their goal, they'd leave and then they would be back. It's like, okay, I need to build more into the process. So there's life after debt. Supporting people to be able to tolerate, this is all mine. I don't owe it to these creditors, and what that's like. So it's a very holistic process, that I've created over these 30 years.
Yeah. And that's very evident in your website and in the content. And let me tell you, people, that this is extremely generous. The price on your product is extremely generous. And when I saw that, I was like, this is heartfelt. Because we do, as a business, have to make an income if you still want us here to help. There is that reality to it. And I feel like, I think a lot of people are looking at this more closely now. And this has been, I think, I've been calling it the gifts of COVID. There have been some gifts that come out of this, because we do need to look at the spending, and we did need to get, if you didn't have all of this already in place, there's some very real conversations that had to happen. And I see this, what you're talking about, the holistic approach to everything, it really is about investing in self. Because you invest in your health too, because that stress about being in debt, or that stress about how do I pay the babysitter this week, or, it's not all about income. A lot of it is about how am I trying to fulfill myself through, or just not learning great habits. So I do love that whole, okay, this is where you are, the matter of factness of it, right? Like, this is where you are, but that's okay. We have all this that we can help with. And one of the premises of the coaching, my wiring, but the coaching that I do, is I'm often pointing out what others can't see in themselves. I feel like my job is often to introduce people to themselves, to say, listen, I see all this value in this ability and this amazing resiliency. Do you? And I don't sugarcoat. I'll see I'll call it if I think that they're BSing as well. But so while people are going through this now, and they may not have a clear idea, or they may not have a clear idea of what's coming in. How would you, is there anything that you could suggest besides what you've given us a lot today? And this is going out at the first of the month, so I'm going to issue a challenge to my people.
Well, that's a great question. And it is, when I train many coaches, one of the things I tell them is, your number one objection when somebody calls, when an entrepreneur calls about your services and you say, yeah, we do this and we're going to learn how to plan. The number one thing that they will say is, I can't do that because I don't know what I'm going to make. Mm-hmm. That's the number one obstacle that they feel. And what I always say is more important than ever, because they will get clear. So, for example, I for some reason, there were a couple of years where I had a lot of contractors, and they were notorious for saying, well, I'm going to bring in this amount, and it would be so different. Because when I would put it down, I'd say, is there a 100% chance you're getting this? Well, no, I actually haven't invoiced yet.
Yeah.
No, I have these orders to do. Oh, yeah, but now I've finished the work. I haven't invoiced, and I have sent a bill, but I didn't send a follow-up, and they're 30 days late.
Yes. So, I've worked with these same people.
Absolutely. So, but also, and I hope I can explain this, is, sometimes there's stuff that happens and you hope you can explain it, but getting clear on what a person needs to earn,
right,
is really one of the first steps. So have my personal plan. This is what I need to pay myself to have this life that I want, that I've created.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's way more than the person's comfortable with, maybe they have to downsize, but usually, no, they can come up. They haven't really thought about it. Now they do their business plan. Okay, what do they need to earn to run their business? Now they have a concrete number of what they need to earn. Without that, how can you come up with a marketing plan and decide I'm going to do this or that? And I would always, it's like, okay, what's my lifestyle going to be this year? What do I need to earn? Then you have a concrete number rather than just, well, I want to make 6 figures or I want to make 7 figures. You want to have it be something that's based in reality
Right.
of what you want your lifestyle to be. And then what do you need to be supporting in that? So I when people would call and say, well, I want to come in and work on my under-earning, we never really know, is somebody under-earning? Are they overspending? It's usually a combination. So we would deal with their earning, whether it was under-earning or what, but it wasn't, that wasn't the thing all by itself. That may be the benefit that they would get. They learned how to use their money so that, they feel good about what they're earning. They may be earning enough. More often what I would see is really when we would do the annual plan, because that's what, at the beginning of January, you want to get that annual plan done early in the year. Mm. And then you say, okay, if I'm going to earn this, what are the steps I need to take? And then you can come up with the rest of your plan for how you're going to earn that money. Mm-hmm. You have to have that before a person's going to be able to determine. And then because they're tracking, and remember I said that when they track every month, then it transfers over to this annual. Mm-hmm. If people see side by side, well, this is what I earned in January, this is what I earned in February, this is what I earned in March. Same thing with their expenditures. 1 month at a time seeing figures doesn't necessarily break through that denial for someone. If they start seeing it side by side, it's like I said, the graduate school of plans, they go, whoa, look at, hey, so often I was doing this with somebody recently. She said, I didn't realize I made this much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like, it's way less than what they think, but a lot of times it's like, no, I make more. Yeah. They're unconscious. So everything in my process is designed to help people get really strong and connected with their money and to see what the numbers are telling them, mm-hmm. and then see what they want the numbers to tell them. Mm-hmm. It is a process that evolves over time.
Yeah. And it's so important because this also relates to, money is a frequency. It's a vibration in the universe. So a lot of, like when I've worked with people, not as detailed as you do, but when I work with them, I will say, okay, but how do you feel about that amount that you're tossing out there? Because if you don't feel the value of the amount that your head is saying you want, but your own value or frequency within is not resonant with that, there's a very real clog in the pipe here, because you won't be able to manifest that. Like you might be busting your butt, but it very rarely shows up in a way that is equal to the amount that someone said if they're in that reverse space. So
right.
Then that's where that self-value.
That's why that process I was describing early on, where if people start, that clog, I like the way you're talking about that clog. That's what I was talking about, is they start tuning into some of their needs and it starts pushing them deeper. It's unclogging that so that they do start feeling that they have value and they deserve. So they have to create that container if there's that big block that says, no, you're not worthy. Yeah. You don't deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah. And to see that, one of the joys that I have in my work is to see that turn on in someone. Like you can.
I love that too.
You can watch it. You can see it, and you're like, oh, it's coming. Here it comes. When someone recognizes their own value, I've called it my contact high before. Like I'm not sitting here taking the credit for it. However, that is really cool, and it's just this light that emanates from their being.
Cool. Absolutely.
And it's such a privilege to be part of that. But then I think it also gives like these ideas that when you go to your bookshelf and that pops out, or you wake up in the morning and it's money grit. Because we are all contributing, I feel like that's the dance that happens too energetically is, when there's expansion of one, it contributes. And then if we happen to be in that, in the process of it with them, I feel like it does go out exponentially. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I feel like we can affect change on so many levels, and someone might hear this and not be ready. And then in June, something doink in their heads.
Absolutely.
So if you're listening to this and you're like, no, just bring back that talk about angels and stuff. That's okay. Just let it sink in. Because somewhere along the line, I promise you, your soul is going to speak to you, and it's going to say, I have value. I want to feel that value. Now let me follow through and see if I can create that value. And of course you can. No if. So.
One of the, and she was a therapist and somebody who went through my training. And when we were looking at her clothing category, she had just clothes, and I said, well, but let's talk about your wardrobe. And, how about your underwear, your workout clothes? She was a skier, ski clothes, And she said, I just don't spend money on that. She said, I haven't bought any underwear or anything for a long time. So I said, well, let's add some categories here. Let's put lingerie as a category and, put these different categories. What about shoes and boots? How about handbags and accessories? Anyway, months later, she came back and she said, I went from not being able to buy myself underwear to having $10,000 in the bank for the first time in my life. Saved. So that, taking care of the little areas of deprivation in our life, it does shift. It really, really does shift. And it's wonderful. And when you were talking about expansiveness, having a more expansive life, one of the diagrams I have in my book is an upside down triangle called the money life drain. So if people, just think of the pressure on our shoulders, just think worry, not enough, no savings, debt, dissatisfied. And then, it just goes down. So then relationships are stressed. I feel like I have to work and earn more. And then I just have this triangle where life force just literally, it's like, the drain, when you see water going down the drain, your life force is just sort of going down the drain. And so the goal is to reverse that triangle. And so if you now put the triangle in the right way and you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the foundation things. Yeah. And so kind of working up. So that is, I think, what all this does for people. It does help them get out of the money life drain and start having a more expansive life. That life force when it's like, no, I can't go out to dinner. Well, nobody's going out to dinner these days with COVID. We miss that.
Hopefully. Yeah, I have to say, I've learned to cook and I'm not exactly thrilled about it.
Yeah, so we really miss that. But, but to have an expansive life, a more expansive life than someone's having, regardless of the circumstances. And that is another beautiful thing, and so there's different ways for people to think of it. Caught in the money life drain, I want to reverse that. My different little levels for getting out of debt and wanting to save. I've done a lot with triangles. And so when you said, I can't remember the exact word, but when somebody's like not able to, expand. Yeah. I wanted to kind of bring that around full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning. That is beautiful to see when a person starts having a more expansive life. It
is. And I love when they're able to, they can feel, you can feel it, the empowerment, the heart, because that, I call it the ripple effect, because that's going to ripple out. When someone is lit up about their life, it might not, and hopefully it's not the same as ours, because that we need that diversity too. But when somebody's lit up about their life and they have that life force energy that they're emitting, it's contagious. And, I think that's a great way of affecting other people around you too is how I challenged someone last week. I said, how good can you get with yourself? This is the challenge that we're laying down. How good can you get with yourself? You're not going to get such a fat head that you won't fit through the door. I promise. But how good can you get with yourself so that there's less chaos going on and there's more living? So this is it. So I am so grateful that you were able to spend this time. Please come back anytime.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. It's my pleasure, Vicki.
I appreciate it. This is going to help a lot of people. I feel like it's going to open the possibility for people. And one of the ways I have a formula in my coaching. I don't do cookie cutter, but I believe intuition comes first. Then you explore the possibility and then action. So intuition may get them to the podcast. We explored the possibility here. And perhaps the action is to follow up. Oh, so speaking of that, where do we find you?
Okay. Moneygrit.com.
Moneygrit.com.
Moneygrit.com. Yes. Also, Financial Recovery Institute. I still have that business. I will probably be kind of retiring from that, but financialrecovery.com also. And that is the name of my book, Financial Recovery. So, and in Financial Recovery is where I have the Saving Your Way Out of Debt program, and where I do a monthly free call on the first Monday of every month. There's, a link to that for people as well. So,
I saw that. Money Monday.
Monthly Money Monday.
MMM.
MMM. Lots of M's.
Micro movements matter.
Yes.
And we will put links to everything, but a lot of people are auditory, and I want to honor that. Not everybody is visual. We have very different learners. So that's something that I strive for, is to include everyone. So we will include that. And thank you so much, truly.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you, Vicki.
Pleasure. Thank you for listening to Intuition, Your First Sense. I'm so grateful to have you here. It's like a gift to me every week. And speaking of gifts, did you know that you can purchase gift certificates on my website, VickiBaird.com, for yourself, for others? You can purchase coaching packages and gift those out. So please head on over to VickiBaird.com and purchase your electronic gift certificate.